Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and on this episode, I'm going to be talking about what is easily one of the most forgettable Marvel movies I've seen in a really long time. I watched this thing, and the next day, I realized that I couldn't really remember what happened. None of it stood out in any way. The thing I remembered the most was how bored I was watching it. It's Morbius, a movie that was delayed several times before it finally came out last spring, and boy, was it ever totally not worth the wait. This movie tells the story of Michael Morbius, who, as a child, lived in a hospital due to his blood illness. And what blood illness would that be? I don't know. Anyways, some new kid arrives at the hospital, and his name is Lucien, but Morbius is like, no, your name is Milo, because I called the kid in the bed before you Milo, and he died. And the kid before him, I called him Milo too, and he also died. So basically, your name is Milo now because I said so. I want to call you Milo because that's what I call every kid who dies next to me. And that just becomes the character's name for the rest of the movie. And that's the reason why. Morbius just can't let go of the name. You know, it's obviously got such a good track record. So I guess Lucien has the same illness that Morbius has, even though we don't really know what that is.
There's something missing from our DNA.
So there's these school kids from across the road, and they like to make fun of the kids in the hospital. And Morbius tells Milo that the two of them are like the few against the many, which is funny to me because if you want to stick together and develop a friendship with this kid, how about you start by giving him enough respect to call him by his actual name? I mean, this young disabled boy gets shipped off to live in a hospital. Just imagine how much that would suck in the first place. And the moment he gets there, the kid who's right next to him is like, yeah, I don't care what your name is. You're Milo now because I said so. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to make him feel right at home. Suddenly, Lucien just passes out, and in this moment of life or death, Morbius still won't call him by his actual name.
Milo? Milo.
And believe it or not, it gets even better. Apparently, there aren't any nurses nearby. Okay, so Morbius springs into action by opening up Lucien's dialysis machine and instantly fixing it with a spring.
Lucien!
Well, there you go. All it took was this kid knocking on death's door for Morbius to finally call him by his actual name. And the doctors are like, holy crap, it took a team of scientists to build that machine, and this kid fixed it with a ballpoint pen. He's a genius. Send him to a gifted school right now. But just him. The other kids, I mean, it's not even debatable. This kid fixed this machine in like 2 seconds. He just opened up that pen and just, there's no chance that he didn't know what he was doing and was just trying anything. He obviously has no place here. Send him to one of the smart kid hospitals and give him all the office supplies he can handle. Who knows what he's going to whip up next? Next week, he could be performing brain surgery with a stapler. Morbius writes Lucien a letter telling him that he's going to find a cure for them one day. The letter flies out the window and the school kids find it and then they beat him up. Because every villain needs a good origin story. Too bad this movie doesn't really have it. And this is great. The head doctor or whatever sees the fight, so he goes to break it up. And even he is calling him Milo. Milo. This kid just can't catch a break. Morbius isn't even at the hospital anymore, and he can't get away from this name. It's a good thing Morbius didn't name him Shithead or something. So Morbius grows up to develop artificial blood, saves a bunch of lives, and wins a Nobel Prize. But then he declines it, which is just hilarious. I mean, you got dressed up, you went to the ceremony, you sat there. Why not just accept the award at that point? I mean, what is your problem? It's not as if he's like, I'm too busy saving lives to go to that event. No, he went and wasted everybody's time. Why disrespect the entire scientific community, as he says?
Who does that?
Well, Anna, we both know I have issues.
Well, I got issues. Yeah, everybody has issues. Even I have issues. But that doesn't make me want to go and do something like this. It doesn't make sense. I guess Morbius is working on something bigger, a cure for his disease. But then a colleague of his, Martine, is like, hey, you're mixing bat DNA with human DNA. And Morbius is like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Martine goes, well, how about this giant tank filled with vampire bats that you've been keeping here in the lab? It's like the centerpiece. How do you explain that? And Morbius is like, yeah, well, you know, it's like a fish tank, but with flying mammals. There's nothing wrong with that. So basically what's going on here is that if Morbius can splice his DNA with bat DNA, it would cure his blood illness. Again, what blood illness exactly? No idea. Of course, this whole experiment is illegal, so Morbius comes up with the perfect solution. He's gonna get a really big boat and then go out into international waters and do the experiment out there, where there are no laws. See, this is what makes Morbius such a genius, coming up with these solutions so quickly. You know, fuse is broken, pop a spring in there. Experiment is illegal, international waters. People want to honor your achievements, needlessly insult them. Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, who's funding all of this? I mean, this sounds pretty expensive. Well, it's Lucien, of course. He's rich, apparently, and he's been the one funding all of this research. Also, I guess he's just come to accept that his name is Milo now. All the money in the world isn't enough to convince Morbius to call him by his actual name, so Martine injects him with the stuff on the boat, and holy crap, he's Morbius, the living vampire now, in desperate need of blood and better visual effects. Then he wakes up after he drains the blood of everybody on the boat, and he's like, ah, crap, I gotta get out of here. So he jumps overboard and I guess swims back to New York City? I don't know, maybe he flew, because now he has all these powers that bats have, like echolocation and flying. Even though with bats they have wings to help them fly. It's not like it's just magic. He doesn't have wings though, so it really is just like magic. And also when he flies, he leaves behind this, I don't know, stink trail. It's kind of apropos. For some reason, it changes color based on the clothes he's wearing. Anyways, now he has all this agility and super strength and the ability to hide his identity by wearing a hoodie. The downside is that he constantly needs to drink blood, so that's going to put people at risk. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but he invented artificial blood, so problem solved. He can just drink that. Well, the movie gets around that with this amazing piece of writing.
Artificial blood won't work forever.
Yeah, see, it's just going to stop working eventually, because it will. Anyways, Milo comes over and sees that Morbius can move around without his crutches, and he's like, dude, what the hell? You found a cure to our mystery disease and you didn't tell me? Well, cough it up, man. Come on, I'm the one writing the checks here. And Morbius is like, dude, I'm a vampire now, okay? It's not that great. I mean, sure, there are some perks, but it also kind of sucks. Pun intended. Seriously, though, I actually do need to suck the blood out of people and kill them.
I need this.
Done things, Milo.
Things that I can't take back. I bought a bunch of NFTs, and they weren't even good NFTs, but they were really expensive when I bought them last night. And today, they're worth nothing. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're worth less than nothing. I'm pretty sure they're in the negatives somehow. So, I don't know how this works. Do I owe somebody money now? Anyways, Milo is super pissed now, and later that night, this nurse gets attacked and gets all of her blood sucked out. And somehow, this nurse has been lying dead in a hallway of a hospital all night, and nobody noticed.
She's been there all night. Looks like all the blood was drained from her body.
So Morbius is like, oh crap, I gotta get out of here. Better wear my hoodie again because I don't want people to notice how healthy I look, But the cops do notice how healthy he looks, and they charge him with the murder of the nurse because, you know, he was on that boat where people had the blood sucked out of them. And they found the origami of a bat, so he must be a vampire. Pretty open and shut case, if you ask me.
Holy water?
So while he's in the clink, Milo comes to visit him, and this is when Morbius notices that Milo doesn't need his cane anymore. He's cured. He was the one who killed the nurse, which means that Milo stole the serum, and this happened pretty fast, basically right after the conversation where Morbius told Milo that he can't control it. I guess Milo saw how messed up Morbius was from the serum, and he was just like, well, I gotta get my hands on that stuff right away. And this is basically the movie now. Morbius has to stop Milo, and yet the whole thing manages to be so uninteresting. There's nothing here that we haven't seen done before and done much better before. There's also this scene where Morbius uses his powers to find a lab and do some crime fighting at the same time. It all feels so shoehorned in.
I am
The whole time watching it, I just didn't really care that much about the characters. Morbius isn't that interesting of a protagonist, and Milo isn't that interesting of an antagonist. And to be honest, after Milo injects himself with the serum, I don't really understand his motives. I mean, sure, he needs blood, just like Morbius, but beyond that, his desire to kill as many people as possible just seems forced. At one point, he tells Morbius that they've had to live under the constant threat of death their whole lives, so now regular people should.
All our lives we've lived with death hanging over us. Why shouldn't they know what it feels like for a change?
And then at another point, he seems to be mad that Morbius isn't accepting himself.
Well, tell me your side then, Milo.
Michael doesn't accept what he is.
He sees him and Morbius as the few against the many because they're different, and this all seems to be fueling his evil. So as the rest of the movie plodded along, I found it impossible to get invested in any of it. The characters aren't that interesting, and you never get the feeling that the stakes are really that high. The moments that are supposed to build momentum seem to be void of suspense and intensity. Even the fight scenes. It all ends up being incredibly bland, and as I mentioned before, pretty forgettable. The visual effects don't do the movie any favors either. Everything is mediocre at best and pales in comparison to what we've seen in other movies from years ago. The two of them fight, and Morbius uses the power of his friendship with bats to knock down Milo and then injects him with an antibody that he made, and then he just flies off with the bats, and that's it. So when this movie came out last April, it made $39 million in its opening weekend and finished first at the box office. But the next weekend, it dropped 74%, which is the second worst drop of all time for a superhero movie. By the way, the top spot goes to Steel from 1997 with Shaquille O'Neal. I've watched that movie, and quite honestly, I would actually watch that again before watching this again. Morbius went on to become a huge meme, and all these people online started writing fake reviews praising the movie. So with all that online activity, Sony apparently thought, hey, people are really interested in seeing this movie from 2 months ago. Let's re-release it. It was re-released in June. It made $85,000 the first day, $300,000 over the course of the weekend. It worked out to something like $289 per theater. So Sony just pulled it from theaters entirely. And what's funny about this is that if you look up the movie online, at a glance, you might think, oh, the critics hated it, but the general public loved it. But if you actually go in and read these reviews, so many of them are clearly just trolling the movie. This movie changed my life. When Morbius said, "It's Morbin time," and morbed all over the bad guys, I felt so many emotions, I morbed too. Truly one of the movies of all time, and I completely understand how it made 100 more billions. And you'll see a ton of this scattered throughout these reviews. This Morbin movie made me morb so many times. Every day I wake up and think of morbing and how Morbius and Jared Leto make me morb. I can't wait for Morbius 2, The Search for More Morb. And these just go on and on and on and on. And it doesn't stop there. When the movie came out, people got the hashtag trending Morbius Sweep, which claimed that this was the most successful movie of all time and that it sold over 1 trillion tickets. Now, believe it or not, this wasn't the first attempt at putting Morbius on the big screen. There was an alternate ending to the movie Blade where Morbius appears. They were going to give Morbius a larger role in Blade 2, but obviously he was cut from the first movie and was never introduced in the sequel. The first time I was introduced to Morbius was the Spider-Man TV show from the 90s, and I'll be honest with you, even as a kid, I just did not care for the character. I believe they had to do a bunch of stuff to get around the censors since it was a kids show, so they couldn't have him saying blood, so he would always say plasma.
I need more plasma.
And they obviously couldn't have him biting into people's necks and sucking out their blood, so they had to give him the hand suckers. And I remember, even as a kid, watching that, just being like, this is stupid. So suffice to say, when I heard they were making this movie, my interest was already at 0. And I never would have watched this movie, quite honestly, if it wasn't for people messaging me, asking me to review it for the show. This movie is part of the Sony Spider-Man universe along with Venom, but as of right now, no plans for a sequel have been announced. Overall, I thought the movie was dull as hell. And there's just so many Marvel movies that come out all the time. There's nothing here that makes this stand out in a positive way. But that's pretty much it for this one. As usual, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next time.
We can make that go away. The ones on the boat, they're thugs, guns for hire. I can make that go away.
No, Milo, you don't understand. I did a lot of stuff. I think I bought Twitter Blue last night. and that's $8 I'm never going to see again. Even you can't fix that.
Someone black boys, someone black dogs.